The blind date was going down in flames, and not the kind I could put out with a standard Class B extinguisher. This was a structural collapse, the kind where you pull your crew out and set up a defensive perimeter. I just think firefighters are so... The woman across from me, a 22-year-old marketing coordinator named Kaylee, twirled a strand of blonde hair around a manicured finger. She leaned over the cafe table, batting her eyelashes with a ferocity that was honestly alarming. Heroic. Do you have a calendar? Like, with the suspenders and the soot? I took a sip of my black coffee. It was lukewarm and bitter. I set the cup down carefully, lining it up with the edge of the table to avoid looking at her hopeful expression. No. I have a Google Calendar. It mostly lists shift rotations, hydrant flushing schedules, and mandatory HR seminars on workplace safety protocols. Kaylee blinked. The disconnect was palpable. It was a physical thing in the air, thick as smoke in a hallway with no ventilation. I looked up at the exit sign above the patio door. Green letters. LED illumination. Battery backup compliant. I focused on the signage because focusing on the conversation was physically painful. My jaw tightened. I counted the tiles on the cafe floor instead of answering her silence. "Oh," she said, her smile faltering. "Well, do you slide down a pole? That's kind of hot." "Stairs are safer," I said flatly. "Poles cause ankle injuries and friction burns. It's an unnecessary liability. Most modern stations are phasing them out to reduce workers' comp claims. My station uses a rapid descent slide, which is essentially a playground slide painted red." She stared at me. The silence stretched, uncomfortable and heavy. I was about to signal for the check, to end this misery with efficient politeness, when a shadow fell over our table. "Chase, is that you?" I looked up. The sunlight framed a woman standing by the patio railing, dark hair pulled back in a messy bun that defied gravity, a smudge of white flour on her cheek, and eyes that held a terrifying amount of amusement. It was Morgan. Morgan Rodriguez, my rookie's mom. I stood up so fast my chair scraped loudly against the concrete, startling a pigeon 3 tables away. "Morgan, Chase, we've been over this. I'm not my mother-in-law." She glanced at Kaylee, then back to me. Her gaze dropped to the table, the untouched pastry, my half-empty coffee, Kaylee's bored expression. She did the math in a split second. "Blind date?" she asked. "Something like that," I muttered, feeling like a teenager caught cutting class rather than a fire captain who managed a crew of 12 men in high-stakes environments. Morgan smiled. It wasn't a polite, social smile. It was a knowing one. "Leo told me you were busy today. He didn't mention you were." "Recruiting." She looked at Kaylee, who was glaring at her, then back at me. Her eyes danced with mischief. "She's very young, Chase. She's..." I didn't know how to finish that sentence without being rude. Kaylee was perfectly nice. She was just untethered. She floated. I needed gravity. "So you do like older women," Morgan said, her voice dropping a register, dry and teasing. "Interesting." My brain short-circuited. I felt the heat creep up the back of my neck. It's not, I didn't pick the date. My sister set it up. She thinks I need more fun in my life. "I'm kidding." She laughed, and the sound was warm, grounding. It cut through the awkward tension like a ventilation saw. She adjusted the heavy strap of her tote bag. "I'm actually glad I ran into you. I need to ask you something about the venue. Code stuff. When you're done." Heroing. She winked at Kaylee, a friendly, disarming wink, and walked away toward the counter. I looked at Kaylee. "I have to go." "Who was that?" Kaylee demanded, looking offended. "A structural integrity issue," I said, dropping a 20 on the table. "I have to handle it." I found Morgan waiting by her beat-up cargo van in the parking lot. She was wrestling with a large catering box that looked heavier than she was. "Let me," I said. I didn't ask. I stepped in, took the weight of the box, and slid it into the back of the van with a controlled shove. "Thanks," she said, wiping her hands on her jeans. She looked tired. There were fine lines around her eyes that hadn't been there a year ago, shadows that spoke of sleepless nights. Sorry about crashing your date. It looked painful. I thought a rescue might be appreciated. It was a rescue mission, I admitted. You saved me from explaining hydraulic extrication tools for the third time? Good. Because now I need you to save me. She leaned against the van, crossing her arms. The humor faded from her face, replaced by a stark, raw anxiety. The foundry. I got a notice from the city inspector this morning. Vance. The name landed like a heavy boot. Vance was a bureaucrat who used the fire code as a weapon. He didn't care about safety. He cared about fines and power. He was the kind of inspector who measured door widths with a laser and failed you for being a millimeter off. What did he cite? I asked, shifting into work mode. Everything. Egress width, emergency lighting, the sprinkler system pressure. He gave me 30 days to bring it up to code, or he pulls my occupancy permit. She looked at me, her eyes dark. The charity gala is in 4 weeks, Chase. If I lose that permit, I lose the deposit money. If I lose the money, I lose the building. It's Leo's legacy. I looked at her. Morgan had been a widow since Leo was 5. She had built the Foundry, a community event space in an old industrial mill with nothing but grit, debt, and determination. I can't fix the ticket, I said gently. I can't make Vance go away. He operates by the book, even if he reads it upside down sometimes. I know. I'm not asking for a favor. I'm asking for the truth. She took a breath. Leo says, you're the best investigator in the department. He says you can look at a pile of ash and tell exactly how the fire started. I need you to look at my building and tell me how to stop it from ending. I'm expensive, I said, automatically. It was a defense mechanism. I didn't want to get involved. I can pay you in coffee and the truth, she said. I make very good coffee, and I promise not to ask about the suspenders. I looked at the flower on her cheek. I looked at the determination in her jaw. She wasn't a damsel. She was a captain trying to save her ship. I drink it black, I said. I'll be there at 0800 tomorrow. The Foundry was a beautiful nightmare. It was a cavernous brick building with high ceilings and exposed redwood beams. It smelled of old wood, floor wax, and potential. It also smelled, faintly, of ozone, which meant the wiring was overheating somewhere in the walls. I walked through the main hall with my thermal imaging camera. The screen showed me the heat signatures, the hidden veins of the building. Morgan followed me, holding a clipboard, her pen poised. The occupancy load is calculated wrong, I said, pointing to the main doors. For a space this size, 5,000 square feet, you need 2 additional feet of egress width. Those panic bars on the side doors, they're sticky. I tested them. If a crowd crushes against them, they won't release. That's a fatality trap. Triangle? Shirtwaist factory stuff. Morgan wrote it down. Her hand was shaking slightly. Okay. Fix the doors. What else? The sprinkler heads are painted over. I pointed up to the ceiling. Classic mistake. Paint seals the fusible link. In a fire, they won't deploy until the temperature hits 400 degrees. By then, the roof is collapsing. I can scrape them? No. You have to replace them. Code NFPA 13. You touch them, you void the warranty. They have to be replaced. I moved to the kitchen. This was the heart of the problem. The grease trap was too close to the pilot lights. The ventilation hood was greasy, and the electrical panel. I opened the gray box. It looked like a plate of spaghetti thrown against the wall. Extension cords daisy-chained together, breakers double-tapped. It was the kind of thing that kept me awake at night. I stopped. I turned to her. Morgan, it's bad, isn't it? It's a tinderbox. I put the camera down on a stainless steel prep table. Vance isn't wrong. He's an ass, but he's not wrong. If you host 300 people in here and a spark hits that grease trap, or that panel overloads, I didn't finish. I didn't have to. I saw the realization hit her. The color drained from her face. She dropped the clipboard. It clattered loudly on the concrete floor. I can't do it, she whispered. The quotes for the electrical alone. I called 3 guys. The cheapest was $20,000. I have 3,000 in the operating account. She leaned back against the counter, covering her face with her hands. I'm going to lose it. Leo's college fund. Everything I worked for. I stood there. My training told me to log the hazards, issue the citation, and leave. I diagnosed problems. I didn't pay for them. But then I looked at her hands. They were rough, calloused, working hands. She wasn't asking for a handout. She was asking for a fighting chance. I thought about Leo, the kid who cleaned the fire truck wheels with a toothbrush because he wanted to be perfect. He got that from her. I picked up the clipboard. You don't need a contractor for the panic bars, I said. That's a tension adjustment. I have the tools in my truck. She lowered her hands, eyes red-rimmed. What? The sprinkler heads. If you buy the parts wholesale, I can install them. I'm certified for suppression systems. That saves you $4,000 in labor. I tap the clipboard with my finger. The electrical is the hard part. But if we run conduit along the surface instead of behind the brick, we cut the labor cost by 70%. It's industrial chic. People pay extra for that. But the permit, she started. My uncle owns a licensed firm, I said. He owes me a favor for pulling his truck out of a ditch last winter. We file under his license. We list it as temporary assembly wiring for the event, which buys us a 90-day window to finalize the permanent install. You, she stared at me. You would do that? I'm not doing it for you, I lied. I'm doing it because bad wiring offends me. It's inefficient. Chase, she stepped closer. Why? Because Leo needs to focus on his exams, not on his mom losing her business. I looked at the grease trap. And because you were right. I do like older women. They listen when I tell them to fix their exit signs. A laugh startled out of her. It was wet, bordering on a sob, but it was there. Okay, she said. You're hired. But I'm warning you, I micromanage. I'm a fire captain, I said, picking up my tool bag. I don't get managed. I take command. Now hand me a screwdriver. We fell into a rhythm. A grueling, dusty, exhausted rhythm that spanned 3 weeks. I worked my shifts at the station 24 hours on, 48 off. On my off days, and most of my evenings, I drove straight to the foundry. It wasn't romantic montage music. It was real work. It was measuring twice, cutting once, and inhaling drywall dust. Day 4. The panic bars. I sat on the floor by the east exit, disassembling the latch mechanism. It was jammed with years of grime and rust. This wasn't just a door. It was a mechanical failure waiting to kill someone. WD-40? Morgan asked, hovering over me with a can she'd found in the shed. No. WD-40 attracts dust. It gums up the works. I didn't look up. Graphite lubricant. It's dry. It doesn't hold grit. Pass me the tube from the bag. She handed it to me. Her fingers brushed mine. You really know everything, don't you? I know how things break, I said, injecting the graphite powder into the hinge. Knowing how to fix them is just the inverse. That's a sad way to see the world, Chase. I stopped. I looked up at her. It keeps people alive. Optimism is great for parties. Pessimism builds the building code. Does it make you happy, though? She asked. Happiness isn't a safety metric. She looked at me for a long time, studying my face like it was a blueprint she couldn't quite read. Then she reached out and wiped a smudge of grease from my cheek. You need to eat. I made lasagna. Day 8. The high work. We were on scissor lifts, 20 feet in the air. I was replacing the sprinkler heads. She was handing me the Teflon tape to seal the threads. The lift swayed slightly as I shifted my weight to torque the wrench. Morgan gasped, her knuckles turning white on the railing. You're afraid of heights, I noticed. I'm afraid of falling, she corrected, her voice tight. Different physics. Heights are just distance. Falling is the impact. You won't fall. The harness is rated for 5,000 pounds. The lift has a hydraulic lock. I reached out and tapped her hand. forcing her to look at me instead of the ground. Trust the gear. I don't trust the gear, she whispered, looking at me. I trust the operator. The air in the cavernous room suddenly felt very thin. Her eyes were dark, serious. I won't let you fall, I said. It was a simple statement of fact. She exhaled, her grip on the railing loosening. Okay, I believe you. I turned back to the pipe. Past the wrench. Day dues. The conduit. This was the beast. Running 300 feet of steel pipe along the brick walls. It required precision. We had to bend the pipe manually. I was sweating. My t-shirt was stuck to my back. It was 11 p.m. on a Tuesday. Hold this, I called down from the ladder. Morgan was there instantly. She grabbed the end of the heavy pipe, bracing it against her hip. She wasn't strong like a firefighter, but she was sturdy. She had mom strength, the kind that comes from carrying toddlers and groceries and the weight of the world for 20 years. Higher, I said. I need to hit the junction box. She pushed up. She shifted her stance to balance the weight, planting her feet wide. Her face was set in grim determination. I forced my eyes to the bracket. Focus on the task. Secure the screw. Verify the anchor. I drilled the screw in. The metal groaned, then held. Okay. Let go. She stepped back, rubbing her arms. You're good at this. It's just mechanics. I climbed down, wiping drywall dust from my face. No, she said. She handed me a bottle of water. It's not just mechanics. You care. You act like you don't, like you're just a machine checking boxes. But you care. You checked every single one of those sprinkler heads 3 times. You marked the floor with tape so I wouldn't trip over the cord. Redundancy saves lives. See? Robot answer. She smiled. She reached out and touched my arm. Just a light pressure of her fingers against my bicep. Thank you, Chase. Really. I froze. The spot where she touched me felt like it had been branded. I wanted to lean into it. I wanted to cover her hand with mine and tell her that fixing this building was the first time in 5 years I felt like I was building something, not just watching things burn down. Instead, I took a step back. I need to check the voltage on the main panel. I walked away. I could feel her watching me. It took me 10 minutes to get my heart rate back to a resting rhythm. We took a break at midnight. Morgan ordered pizza. We sat on the floor of the stage, looking out at the empty, half-finished hall. The work lights cast long, industrial shadows. Why are you single, Chase? She asked. She was picking the pepperoni off her slice. Direct question, I noted. I'm too tired for subtlety. You're handsome, you're employed, you can fix anything. Kaylee seemed nice enough. Why did you look like you wanted to jump out the window? Kaylee wanted a hero, I said, leaning back on my elbows. She wanted the calendar version. The guy who saves the kitten and smiles for the camera. And you're not him? I'm the guy who finds the body after the smoke clears, I said. The words came out harder than I intended. CS22. I'm the guy who tells the family they lost everything because they didn't change the batteries in the smoke detector. It's not heroic, Morgan. It's heavy. It makes you grim. She stopped eating. She looked at me in the dim light. You think you're darkness? She said softly. I think I'm realistic. You're not darkness, she said. She moved her hand, covering mine on the floorboards. Her palm was warm. You're the safety net. You're the thing that catches us when we fall. That's not grim, Chase. That's essential. I looked at our hands. Her hand was small, dusted with chalk from the renovation. Mine was scarred, rough. They looked right together. You should eat, I said, my voice rough. We have an inspection on Monday. I didn't pull my hand away. Neither did she. The trouble arrived on a Thursday, 3 days before the gala. I was at the station, filling out incident reports. Leo walked into my office. He didn't knock. He looked pale and angry. What is it, Moore? I didn't look up. If you didn't finish the hose drill, don't ask for leave. My mom, she told me you've been helping at the foundry. I stopped writing. I put the pen down slowly. Your mother had some code violations. I assisted in the remediation. You assisted? Leo crossed his arms. She says you've been there every night till midnight. She says you rewired the whole north wall. She says you ate pizza on the stage. It needed to be done. Why didn't you tell me? Because you're a probie, I said, my voice hard. You need to focus on your ladder drills, not my off-duty schedule. Is something going on? Leo asked. With you and my mom? Because, if there is, that's weird. Chase. That's my mom. I stood up. Leo, sit down. He sat. He looked young. Too young to understand the complexity of loneliness. Your mother was about to lose her livelihood, I said. She was drowning. I threw her a line. That is what we do. We help people. But why her? You don't help everyone like this. Because she raised a good kid, I said, and because she deserves to win? I leaned forward. Nothing inappropriate has happened. I have treated her with absolute respect. Do you doubt my integrity? Leo looked at me. He saw the steel in my eyes. He swallowed. No, sir. Good, because Vance is there right now, with the police. I grabbed my keys. What? He says the permits were filed incorrectly. He's shutting her down. I drove the engine to the foundry. I didn't use the sirens, but I definitely broke the speed limit. When I arrived, the scene was chaotic. Vance was standing in the middle of the hall, looking smug in his cheap suit. Two officers stood by the door. Morgan was arguing with him, her voice rising in panic, tears streaming down her face. I filed the amendments, she yelled. Chase, Captain Moore filed them himself. Captain Moore isn't the building owner, Vance said smoothly. And unauthorized electrical work performed by a non-licensed party is a Class C violation. I'm tagging the meter. I walked in. I was in full uniform station, boots, badge, the works. The heavy boots echoed on the floor I had helped seal. The work was authorized, I said, my voice projecting to the back of the room. It was my command voice, the voice that moved crowds, and it was performed under the supervision of a certified fire inspector. Me. Vance turned. Captain Moore. How noble. But do you have the electrical sign-off? I have the code book. I pulled the heavy NFPA binder from under my arm and slammed it onto a table. It made a satisfying thud. NFPA 70, Article 518. Places of assembly. Temporary wiring is permitted for exhibition and display purposes if approved by the authority having jurisdiction. In fire safety matters, I am the authority having jurisdiction until the final building sign-off. Vance narrowed his eyes. This isn't temporary. It is, I lied smoothly. We are testing the load capacity for the gala. After the event, we will file for the permanent conduit permit. Until then, as long as the safety systems are active, which they are, you cannot issue a vacate order. I stepped closer to him. I entered his personal space. I towered over him. The fire marshal delegated temporary event inspection authority to me this morning, I said, my voice calm and cold. It's documented in the pre-event compliance memo filed at 0800. We approved the temporary assembly wiring plan under my uncle's licensed firm, as per state regulation. The paperwork is flawless. I leaned in. If you shut this building down today, Vance, I will personally audit every single property you've approved in the last 5 years. I will check every measurement. I will test every alarm, and I will find every skipped step. Do you want that paperwork? Vance looked at me. He looked at the officers, who were clearly bored and not interested in arresting a fire captain who outranked the situation. Fine, Vance spat. But I'll be back Monday morning. If that permanent permit isn't filed, I'm padlocking the doors. He stormed out. The police followed. Silence fell over the room. Morgan looked at me. She was shaking. You threatened to audit him? I stated a fact, I said. He's lazy. He has skeletons, I just reminded him. You put your career on the line. I put the code on the line. The code exists to protect people, not to bully them. She walked up to me. She didn't ask this time. She wrapped her arms around my waist and buried her face in the thick fabric of my uniform shirt. I hesitated for 1 second. Then I wrapped my arms around her. I held her tight. She smelled like sawdust and vanilla. I rested my chin on the top of her head. "You're shaking," I said quietly. "I was scared," she mumbled into my chest. "Don't be. The system is solid. We did good work." She pulled back and looked up at me. Her eyes were wet. "You did good work?" She went up on her tiptoes. She hesitated, searching my face for permission. She kissed me. It wasn't hesitant. It was soft, but sure. It tasted like coffee and relief. I kissed her back. It wasn't a breach of protocol. It was the only steady thing in a room full of smoke. I pulled away before it turned into anything the room could misunderstand, but I kept my hand on her waist. Steady. The night of the gala, the foundry glowed. The industrial lights we'd hung cast a warm, golden haze over the brick. The crowd was huge donors, community leaders, families. The music was loud. I stood by the back exit, in a suit, not a uniform. I was watching the capacity count. Checking for hazards? I turned. Morgan was there. She wore a deep red dress that fitted her perfectly. She looked powerful. "Always," I said. "Occupancy is at 90%. Flow is good. Egress is clear. You and your flow." She smiled. "You look nice, Chase." "Suit's tight," I grumbled. Then, the lights flickered. A collective gasp went through the crowd. A pop sounded from the kitchen area, followed by the distinct smell of burning insulation. Panic rippled. "Chase!" Morgan grabbed my arm. "Stay here," I ordered. "Keep the doors open. Don't let anyone block the exit." I moved. I didn't run. Running causes panic. I walked with purpose toward the kitchen. It wasn't the wiring we'd fixed. It was a catering warmer that had been plugged into a faulty extension cord brought by the food vendor. The cord was melting, sparking onto a stack of napkins. Small fire, high potential for chaos. I grabbed the Class K extinguisher from the wall mount, the one I had insisted she buy 3 weeks ago. I pulled the pin. I aimed. Squeeze. Sweep. The white chemical cloud smothered the flames in 3 seconds. The sparks died. I unplugged the unit. I checked for extension into the wall using the back of my hand. Cool. Negative extension. "Is everyone okay?" I asked the terrified catering staff. "Yes," the chef stammered. "It just popped." "Overload," I said. "Clear the debris. Ventilate the smoke. Do not plug that back in." I walked back out to the main floor. The music had stopped. People were staring. Morgan was on the small stage, holding a microphone. She saw me emerge. Soot on my hands. Tie loosened. She saw the all-clear nod I gave her. She took a breath. "Ladies and gentlemen," she said, her voice steady. "Just a minor technical difficulty in the kitchen. A toaster malfunction. It has been handled." She looked directly at me. "We are lucky," she continued, "to have the best safety officer in the city on our team. I'd like to introduce you to the man who saved this building, who fixed the wires with his own hands, and who keeps us all safe." She gestured to me. The spotlight swung. "Captain Chase Moore," she said. "My partner." The crowd applauded. It was loud. I stood there, blinded by the light. Partner. Not contractor. Not friend. Not my son's boss. Leo was in the front row. He looked at his mom, then back at me. He grinned and gave me a thumbs up. A seal of approval. I looked at Morgan. She wasn't looking at the crowd. She was looking at me. She was claiming me. I walked toward the stage. I didn't slide down a pole. I took the stairs. "You outed me," I said when I reached her, my voice low. "Now Vance knows who to sue." "Let him try," she teased, echoing my own words. "You saved the building? I just brought it up to code." "Chase," she said, taking my hand in front of 300 people. Her hand was soft, but her grip was hard. "You built the safety we're standing in." I squeezed her hand back. "Interesting," I said. The following Monday, the permanent permits cleared without a hitch. I stepped back from the overtime shifts, handing the baton to the next captain. I had a new standing appointment at 0800 hours. Coffee. Black. With her.